150th Contact, October 10th, 1981. Meier discussed information concerning the 29 actual moons of Saturn and the origins of moons from asteroids. Corroborated, November 2000. Scientists announced the discovery of 12 additional moons orbiting Saturn, bringing the official total to 28, just one shy of what Meier reported almost 20 years earlier. Scientist corroborates the likelihood that moons originate from asteroids. 215th Contact, February 28, 1987. Known as the Henoch or Enoch Prophecies, this contact contained a forewarning of the destruction of the World Trade Center, WTC, by terrorism. The series of worldwide wars that the U.S. would subsequently launch, and military actions involving Russia, China, France, Germany, Spain, England, Scandinavia, and many third world and other countries. Corroborated, September 11, 2001, the World Trade Center was destroyed. The United States has already attacked Afghanistan and Iraq as of the time of this writing.
215th Contact, February 3, 1990. Warned of earthquake in California and eruption of the Redoubt volcano in Alaska for February 28, 1992. Corroborated, the upland quake occurred on that precise date, and the Redoubt volcano activity began on February 21st and continued through February 28th, with more activity following in March. 241st Contact, February 3, 1992. This contact contains specific corroborated warnings about landslide in Brazil, March 1992, occurred March 18, 1992. Nuclear accident in Russia during the third week of March occurred March 27, 1992. Landers earthquake in Los Angeles for April 23rd or 24th, 1992, occurred April 22nd, 1992. Eruption of Mount Etna, Italy, in April 1992, reported April 15th, 1992. Eruption of Cerro Negro, Nicaragua, in April 1992, occurred April 9th through 12th, 1992. Earthquakes in Germany, Holland, Belgium area for April 1992, occurred April 13th, 1992. Earthquakes in China, Burma, Myanmar, April 1992, occurred in China, Burma, border, April 23rd, 1992. This one's very important. 249th Contact, June 13th, 1994. Still speculative. In response to a question Meier asked regarding mad cow disease, Patah stated that BSE pathogens cannot be destroyed by simply cooking the meat and other items, or by producing meat meal, and that the temperatures necessary for killing the disease-causing prions would need to be as high as 700 degrees Celsius, 1292 degrees Fahrenheit, and possibly even up to 1,000 degrees Celsius, 1832 degrees Fahrenheit, for previously mutated pathogens that have existed for some time now. Our scientists have been raising their own estimates as to the temperatures necessary to destroy the disease-causing prions, and are now more closely approaching the temperatures that Plajar and Patah stated. 251st Contact, February 3, 1995. This contact contains startling information regarding technological developments such as hybrid warriors created by mixing human and pig DNA. People will have biochips attached to their nerve endings, and Meier warned of ominous biochipping with links to deep space platform satellites and supercomputer. Corroborated, human-pig DNA experiments have begun in the last several years. People are starting to get chipped. Still speculative. Creation of half-human, half-machine beings, clones and androids, discoveries that conclusively confirm existence of previous human life on Mars, rectification of the aging and aggression genes, Plajaran warnings of deep impact scenario and need for a defense system for incoming objects. Michael Horn. The Henoch Prophecies, presented by Quetzal, 215th Contact, Saturday, February 28, 1987. Billy Meier. Since the Second World War, the thoughts, feelings, and actions of the human being of Earth have changed much toward the positive and good, but all that was achieved is not enough in my opinion, as the great transformation towards the better has not been achieved yet, neither by the mighty of this world, nor all of mankind of Earth itself. In the years gone by you have made many predictions and calculations of probability, as well as mentioned prophetic facts concerning the economy, military, and political situation on Earth, whereby I was requested to spread this information, which I have indeed done. Governments and newspapers, radio stations as well as TV stations, and many private persons worldwide were informed by me. But the entire effort did not achieve anything, because up to now mankind has carried on in the old manner and has paid no attention whatsoever to prophecies, predictions, and calculations of probability. And the same will most likely be the case in the future when I receive permission from you in the coming time to spread the prophecies of Henoch for the third millennium. But nevertheless, I feel that Henoch's message for the future must be made known and distributed, because somehow it may bear fruit yet. Quetzal, you apparently never give up hope. Your optimism is honorable and deserves to be heard by human beings, but the way things have developed throughout this century, there's not too much hope that human beings of Earth will come to their senses and heed your words. This will then be the case only when the prophecies prove to be true, or even worse, have already come to pass. Probably only then will the time come when the defamations against you will end in regard to your contacts with us. Although they will long continue to be vehemently disputed by your enemies, as well as by pathological know-it-alls and critics who dismiss them as swindle, lies, and fraud. The full truth about our contacts with you will be proven in the distant future, and then mankind will accept our help we offer through you. Even when they erroneously assume we come here from the seven-star system known to human beings of Earth as the Pleiades, the Plejaren claim to live in the Plejares, an altered time-space configuration about 80 light-years beyond the Pleiades. Michael Horn. Billy, Samyasi and Ptah already explained this to me, but tell us what the new millennium will bring to human beings of Earth and the planet Earth, according to the prophecies of Henoch. Quetzal, I will do that in a moment, but I would like to explain before beginning that I am not authorized to give exact indication of years in an official manner. If the human being of Earth continues to live in the same way as he has done up until now, forming his thoughts and feelings in the same manner, indulging in the same actions as he has hitherto, then the words of the prophecies of Henoch could not be any clearer. The point at which these prophecies will begin to be fulfilled will be when a pope no longer resides in Rome. All of Europe will then fall victim to a terrible punishment by evil powers. The Christian religion will collapse, and the churches and monasteries will end up in ruins and ashes. Monstrous forces will be created by science and will be released by the military forces and armies, as well as by terrorists, causing great destruction. Millions and even billions of people will be killed by acts of terrorism, by wars and civil wars, and finally, in some parts of the world, every third human being, and in other places every fourth human being, will lose his or her life. The nations of the East will rise against the nations of the West against the East. Many deaths will be inflicted upon the people by fighter and bomber aircraft, and bombs and rockets will destroy and annihilate smaller and larger villages and cities. The people will be completely powerless against all this, and will live through 888 days of hell on earth, suffering hunger and plagues, which will claim even more lives than the war itself. The time will be severe as never before experienced on earth. Ultimately, nothing can be bought or sold any longer. All provisions will be rationed, and if a human being steals even a piece of bread, he or she will have to pay for it with his or her life. Many waters will mix with human blood and turn red, as once in the past the Nile in Egypt turned red with blood. And it will be that the fanatics of Islam will rise up against the countries of Europe, and all will shake and quiver. Everything in the West will be destroyed. England will be conquered and thrown down to the lowest level of misery, and the fanatics and warriors of Islam will retain their power for a long time. However, not only Europe will be affected, but ultimately all the countries and peoples of the earth, as the great horror expands to a war that will encompass the entire world. After the turn of the millennium, the papacy will exist only a short period. Pope John Paul II is the third from the last in this position. After him, only one additional pontificate will follow. Then a Pontifex Maximus follows, who will be known as Petrus Romanus. Under his religious rule, the end of the Catholic Church will come, a total collapse becoming inevitable. That will be the beginning of the worst catastrophe that will ever have befallen the human beings and the earth. Many Catholic clerics, priests, bishops, cardinals, and many others will be killed, and their blood will flow in streams. But also the Reformed version of Christianity will become just as infinitely small as does Catholicism. Horrifying weapons and a possible world war. Due to the fault of scientists, enormous power will be seized by the power-hungry and their military, their warriors and terrorists, and power will be seized as well through laser weapons of many types, but also via atomic, chemical, and biological weapons. Also concerning genetic technology, enormous misuse will occur, because this will be unrestrainedly exploited for the purposes of war, not lastly due to the cloning of human beings for warring purposes. And this was practiced in ancient times with the descendants of Henoch in the regions of Sirius. However, this will not be all of the horrors, as besides the genetic technology and the chemical weapons, far worse and more dangerous and more deadly weapons of mass destruction will be produced and will be used. The irresponsible politicians will unscrupulously exercise their powers, assisted by scientists and obedient military forces serving them, who together hold a deadly scepter, and will create clone-like beings which will be bred in a total lack of conscience, and will be scientifically manipulated to become killer machines. Division by division and devoid of any feelings, they will destroy, murder, and annihilate everything. The USA will set out against the eastern countries ahead of all other financial states, and simultaneously she will have to defend herself against the eastern intruders. In all, America will play the most decisive role when, in the guise to strive for peace, to fight against terrorism, she invades many countries of the earth, bombs and destroys everything, and brings thousandfold deaths to the populations. The military politics of the USA will likewise know no limits, as neither will their economic and other political institutions, which will be focused on building and operating a world police force, as it is in the case already for a long time. But that will not be enough, and in the guise of a so-called peaceful globalization, American politics will aspire to gain absolute control of the world concerning supremacy in economics. And this points towards the possibility that a third world war could develop from it, if human beings as a whole will not finally reflect upon reason, become reasonable, and undertake the necessary steps against the insane machinations of their governments and military powers, as well as their secret services, and call a halt to the power of the irresponsible who have forsaken their responsibility in all areas. If this does not happen, many small and great nations will lose their independence and their cultural identity, and will be beaten down because the USA will gain predominance over them, and with evil force bring them down under her rule. At first, many countries will howl with the wolves of the U.S., partially due to fear of American aggressions and sanctions, as will be the case with many irresponsible ones in Switzerland and Germany, but also of other countries. In part, others will join in because they will be forced somehow to do so, or will be misled by irresponsible promoters of American propaganda. Finally, many Asian, African, and European states will rise up against the American hegemony once they recognize that the United States of America is only taking advantage of them for purposes of war, conquest, and exploitation. In this way, many countries will become puppet states of America before reason and realization will emerge, and the responsible ones
of governments and in many of the population, resulting in a turning away from the USA. However, the Great War will hardly be avoidable because the human beings of Earth will probably not accept the directions towards the better therewith towards true love, true freedom, and real peace, striving instead only towards wealth, pleasure, and riches, and for all manner of material values and unrestricted power. Thus huge and deadly formations of tanks will roll across the countries while fighter planes and rockets sweep through the air and bring death, ruin, destruction, and annihilation to countries and people. If the Third World War will actually happen, as calculations and observations appear to indicate to be probable now, and also during the approaching few decades, then as of now, the civilian population will above all have to bear the brunt of the enormous suffering in tremendous numbers in this entire catastrophe, and last but not least, the fault of the irresponsible scientists who by cloning will create human machines for military purposes devoid of conscience and feelings, and will create immensely deadly and all-annihilating computer-like weapons. At the same time, the danger could become reality that the human combat machines, the military clones, will gain their independence and under their own management will bring death, devastation, destruction, and annihilation to the human beings of Earth and to the planet. The entire planet will become an arena of unparalleled suffering, which will never have existed before on Earth up to that time. The cruel happenings will last about 888 days and cause civilization to collapse. Yet the terrible scenario will continue, and epidemics and various diseases as well as enormous famine will be spread among the people, while the economy of the world will totally collapse and there will be no possibility to produce any goods. All foods and medications will be rationed. The insanity of war will extend not only across the land, but the disaster will equally be spread to the oceans, into the atmosphere, even into outer space. But there will also be settlements under the ocean that will be developed in the course of the future, and these will be attacked and destroyed, claiming the lives of many thousands of people. However, a certain maelstrom of destruction will also originate from the underseas facilities, because in the cities at the bottom of the ocean, groups of submarine pirates will be formed, which will burst upwards from the depths of the ocean and will become involved in destructive actions of combat with naval units on the surface. And at this time, the possibility could become reality that extraterrestrial forces intervene against the Western industrialized countries, because these will be responsible for the extreme and enormous disaster of the coming evil times. These extraterrestrial forces will give up their anonymity and their state of secrecy, and will assist those who are being terrorized by the irresponsibly acting Western countries, should this possibility become reality. In addition, apocalyptic natural catastrophes will occur which cause all of Europe to shake and tremble, but Europe will continue to exist even after having suffered enormous destruction.